When I was doing my A levels, I was working like 3, 4 jobs at that time. I remember I nearly got kicked off the course because they found out I was basically working full-time job.
Gone down the wrong path. I always talk to them about some of the qualities it takes to be involved in that tragic and unfortunate and incorrect lifestyle. Some of the qualities it takes to do that are are very powerful qualities to apply and aim in business.
Yeah.
Right? So I don't know that it's a mindset. I think it's just like where you aim it and how it manifests.
It's a new year, so we thought we'd do something different. And in this episode of The Leadership, we've got not one, but two amazing guests. We've got a tech CEO unicorn. He's one of the UK's most influential black people. He's a board director. He's currently the CEO of Fortero, and he's the chairman of the Forbes family group. We've got Mr. Dean Forbes in the house. Alongside him, I've got Miss Davina Williamson. She is the co-founder and director of 6 Degrees Talent. She's been in the PR recruitment game for about 20 plus years. They're both husbands, wives, and parents. And we delve into that personal side of things today. We also talk about the power list. We talk about leadership. We talk about the keys to innovation. We go into creating holistic careers. We talk about self-care. They're both experienced leaders. So how do you look after self is so important. So many great topics that I know you just want to sit down, relax, and just breathe as you take it all in. Let's jump into today's episode.
And I always like to go way back to understand the origins. So I want to start with you actually. How did you, I guess, go from studying English, history, Spanish at A levels to PR?
So, as you say, I did study those A levels, and I had the aspirations to go to university. But when it actually came to it, it wasn't something that was going to transpire for me for various reasons, and mainly because I wanted to go out and work and make money, and university seemed like a way to prolong that. So when I was doing my A levels, I was working like 3, 4 jobs at that time. I remember I nearly got kicked off the course because they found out I was basically working full-time job while doing these A levels. So I sort of went straight into sort of administrative roles. I worked in media agencies as PA, big media agencies, and I once walked into a recruitment agency and they were just like, "You should work here." And at the time, the environment was great. It was like a office full of women. It recruited into digital media, advertising, publishing, all these amazing industries. And I'd spent a little bit of time in the city, and I didn't feel it was the right environment for me. I didn't want to have to conform to that environment. So the media industry in the late 90s, early noughties was a lot more conducive, an industry sector for who I was as a person. And recruitment suited me. I'm a people person. I love speaking. I love finding out about people.
You'd agree there.
I am a networker. I was. He's going to tell a story.
I want to hear the story.
He's going to tell a story. But so it was a really natural synergy for me. I love finding out about people. Anthropologist at heart, basically. And even when I studied a degree course while I was working. Later on, sort of when in my mid to late 20s.
You got that money
I
finally
went back.
then.
Yeah, once I didn't have to compromise. So I actually did a part-time degree in humanities and English because I love the concept of how the human psyche and civilizations are developed and how we operate as humans. So recruitment made sense to me. I got to find out what made people tick, what motivated them, and I got to help them. I've helped some amazing careers over the years. You know, I've seen people who were juniors straight out of uni and now they're MDs running big companies. And it's a really lovely feeling when I can help people find their path.
You sound like you go in deeper than the average recruiter tends to do then.
Yes. You will find that. I believe in a holistic approach to recruitment. I've always said, if you do not enjoy what you do at work, you will not enjoy your life, because work, just based on the way that we work in the West, is a huge part of your life, your week. You know, we technically work from Sunday evening when we start thinking about Monday morning right through to Friday night when we start winding down. So that's where our headspace is.
Yeah.
And if you're not happy in that headspace, it's impossible to thrive in other areas of your life. And that's a message that I've always given candidates. I say, look, there is no dream job. Nobody works in their dreams, but you have to find a sustainable way to live and to have the things that you want in life. And you need to ascertain what success looks like for you. Work is supposed to sustain us. It's not supposed to be everything, you know? And that's my approach to recruitment, both for my clients and my candidates. I say to my clients, you're not hiring a PR, you're hiring a person. So holistically, how are you going to help develop this person to be the best employee that they can be in your business?
Wow. I love that. That's I'm actually then thinking about, even right now, when you're looking at how people are changing and going through this whole great resignation, that people are moving. And that's one of the biggest things that's kind of come out of it, has been people trying to find themselves, not based on a career, but based on who they are individuals, and then going into a career rather than what's always been the other way around all this time. It's your career first, your title first, and then you're now looking to yourself.
Yeah. And I find that actually, you know, there is also, you know, like you say, that element of person who says, oh, you know, I want to find a way that I am doing something I love personally through my career. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can have these two separate entities that work together and sustain each other. Like when my business partner, I have an amazing business partner, we've worked together for like 15 years. So when we set up 6 Degrees Talent, we set it up because we wanted a lifestyle. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't with this kind of commercial fiscal drive, because we came from a big agency that was just all about the numbers, and we wanted to have a really high level of service, but we also wanted to have a good life. Like, back when we started, we used to love going out for beers. Like at the end of most days, it wasn't a Friday. So
Just for wine and relax.
Yeah, no. My business partner John and I, like we both knew we were both recently married. We knew that we wanted to start families. He wanted to be a really involved dad. He was like, could have worked in the city and whatever. It wasn't for him. So I've worked a 4-day week since I was like 29. And that was the whole point. I could make more money, quote unquote, working for somebody, but my quality of life is huge. I'm a working mother, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I have so many other roles. So work doesn't define how I live. And that's a very hard thing to find unless you embrace the fact that you have to think holistically when you're looking at your career.
That's so true. I think that's actually leads perfectly into you, Dean, and your history, because your thing was football, and that was the idea that you had in your head.
Right.
And leading to what they were just talking about, you had to kind of change your approach and how things were going to go for you. And how was that process for you, going from football's all the way I'm going to get out the ends to reframing your future when you got that? I guess it was the agent that told you that you need to do something different going forward.
Right. I think that was one of the hardest transitions in my life. Just dealing with that emotionally and socially, because I always talk about like growing up in that football environment. And what actually happened, reflecting on it now as an adult, is my kind of identity got snatched away from me, right? Because I defined myself as being part of that football group and one of the lads, and we all trained and we all socialised. So I kind of lost my identity for a minute and had to figure out like who I wanted to be. You know, I wasn't going to be that person anymore. I had to figure out who I wanted to be, and I wasn't very thoughtful about it. You know, I was fortunate to be in sufficient debt that I just had to kind of take the first job that became available. And yeah, you know, over time and the competitive in me, that's what's defined my later career, but at the time it was a bit of survival and a bit of, I need to redefine myself now.
Coming from the backgrounds that we come from, especially come from South where you were when you were raised, still viewing the world as like, okay, I need to get out and I need to make money, even what we were just talking about. I need to get out, I need to make money, I need to create and start a career. It's not easy to change your mindset with looking at things.
I think it's the way you put the mindset to good use, right? Yeah. So I don't think my mindset changed. Like I always had a mindset of wanting to be the best, like wanting to be understood as good, right? I always wanted people to look at me and say, he's really good, or he really knows what he's doing. So at the time it was football. The mindset was manifesting itself through football. I wanted to be the best footballer. I wanted to be the best among my peer group. I wanted to be the one who got the longest pro contract for the most money in a positive, competitive way. And that mindset hasn't changed at all, right? It just had to kind of pivot and be aimed at something else. Because in business, I'm the same. I'm exactly the same way. And the trick was like not to let that get distorted during the pivot, right? Not to let it get distorted. And I say it all the time when we talk about people from our old area who may have, gone down the wrong path. I always talk to them about some of the qualities it takes to be involved in that tragic and unfortunate and incorrect lifestyle. Mm-hmm. Some of the qualities it takes to do that are very powerful qualities to apply and aim in business.
Yep.
Right. So I don't know that it's a mindset. I think it's just like where you aim it and how it manifests.
And when you talk about being one of the best, you're a powerlist. So you've definitely taken that and you've become one of the best, one of the most influential black people in the UK. And what does that mean to someone like yourself, being on the power list and having that influence and people, your peers and other people looking at you like, wow, you've made it?
It's very humbling. It's very, very humbling. But the funny thing about that, and I was talking about this in an interview the other day, I was saying that I was anti those lists for many years, right? So growing up and my career was progressing and good things were happening, and I'd get these invitations to, these awards, or people would call and say, oh, you've been named the best black this or the most, progressive black that. And I always used to say, like, number one, I don't want to be defined by my race. Like, don't put me in a list or a category or award me where my skin colour's first, because I want you to look at me and go, he's just good. And the people I compete with at work are more often than not black, right? So being the best black tech CEO in some respects is kind of not meaningless, but it doesn't mean as much to me as being the best tech CEO, right? So I was against those lists for that reason. I really wanted to be viewed and kind of regarded on my merit and merit alone. And then I got nominated onto the power list, and I thought, that's pretty amazing. And then something really important happened. I showed the power list to my kids, and this like switched a light bulb on for me. I showed that power list to my kids, and they went through that list, and I watched it dawn on them that they could actually do anything they wanted to do if they put their mind to it. Because they saw people in cosmetics, and my daughters my daughters used that lady's products, and they were like, oh my God, I didn't realise she was black. They saw senior people at British Telecom, and my son was saying, I didn't realise people, that was a job, and I could be interested in that. And it just opened their horizons, and it triggered what representation is actually really about. And it was at that moment I kind of, became really, 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 I was proud before, but then became really, really, really proud. And I started to understand like how much good we can do if we become more visible.
I think that's a way I've never actually thought about it before, because that's the thing about, there's always this debate about, should we have a list at all? Why should we have a list, and why should it be a blacklist or all those kind of things? And I think our children coming up and seeing people at those levels is very, very inspiring for them. Right. But then speaking of kids, you're CEO right now, you're running your own business as being a CEO. How do you balance parenting, business, family.
We have different approaches. Go on, you go.
It's interesting because Dean and I we talk all the time. We've always got lots of things going on, both personally and professionally. And today, for was a great example. Coming here, and Dean was like, "Oh, afterwards, I think I might go to the office and do this afterwards." And I was like, "Yeah, no, I got to go home and do a school run, bro. Like, I got to do dinner before we go to the other thing we've got on today." And it's just, I've got an amazing husband and a great support system, but he works as well. So, and such is the nature of society in many ways that these things fall to the mother. Mm-hmm. So balance is interesting. And again, going back to what I said before, when I set up my business, it was knowing that I had the intent to be a mother. And I'd worked for years in the media industry and around in recruitment and media and seen mothers struggle to maintain careers and their families. I'd seen how unsupportive businesses have been to that. I've seen women's amazing careers be derailed or, stall because of the choices they make to start a family. And it was something I was not going to let happen to myself. So I took myself to a place where I could manage it efficiently. Not saying I do, but I feel like I've got a good balance. And
she's very good. She's
I
very
have
good
a tradition. I'm quite a traditionalist. We have dinner around the table every day. My husband and my children and I, and I'm there for everything that needs to be there. But yeah, and my children know that my laptop is around all the time, and they shouldn't touch it. I'm always kind of working as well, but I have that time where I switch off, and this is our family time, and we are doing this, and it's important. It's difficult, but it's about the support structure. But within that support structure, we have different challenges.
But I don't. You shouldn't read this as Davina's fiercely competitive, like a very strong businesswoman, an incredible entrepreneur, right? So sometimes you kind of hear this narrative of balance in life and opting for good work-life balance and misinterpret it as being any less ambitious. Like that's not, just to be clear, like that isn't what we're seeing here. You see an incredible ability to balance these things. I'm not as good as Davina is at balancing. I have to manage through extreme discipline of saying Sunday, 12 until 6, I'm not going to work, and I have to have that blocked in my calendar. And on Wednesday, when my son's playing football, I have to have that blocked in my calendar to go and do that. I don't balance naturally. Like if left to my own devices, I probably would just work, continuously and starve and end up divorced and a terrible parent because I'd probably forget to do all of those things. I'd just focus on work. So my mechanism is my diary. I have to have things put into my diary so that I'll spend time with them, which isn't something I'm proud of, but I guess it's just the truth.
You have the luxury of structure.
I have to be structured.
My 2-year-old just throws my diary out the window. she just wakes up and decides, like, oh, you had a meeting this morning? Yeah, no. Here's some Weetabix on your top. But, we all have challenges, and I think it is just about how you manage what's important. Obviously running my business and sustaining my family is important, but actually being there for my family is equally important. And that is prioritizing is something I think we all kind of struggle with.
Well, even just listening to what you just said, it sounds like from day dot you've been very intentional about, even with a 4-day week
100%.
And all of that, and creating your business.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, we're creating this business for one of that reasons. I've seen what happens in the city and I want to do something different. Mm. How was that journey creating a business from scratch for you?
It's fun. It's been fun. It's been hard. There was a whole my business partner and I referred to as squeaky bum time, where it just
I know them times.
Yeah, exactly. It could be going so well. You have a great year, and you're like, yeah, next year's going to look like this. And next year comes, it's like, yeah, it doesn't look like that.
COVID.
Exactly. Well, yeah. I mean, this is it. The COVID is. I mean, I feel like I've had like 3 COVIDs because we started just post the 2008 recession. Then there was that blip in 2012 where it all kind of got a bit peak. And when you're a small business owner, you're at the front line of those things happening. You don't have a buffer of a big company dealing with all the problems that are going to affect your business. And even things like GDPR, like you say it to some people, they're like, what's that thing? And for us, it was just like, oh my God, we're a recruitment business. This is huge. Like, do you know what I mean? Like we've got to read all this legislation and know what's going on. So I think when you're a small business owner, I mean, you have to be robust. You have to be able to pivot really quickly. We were very intentional about how we set up the business. For example, we didn't go for fancy offices and things like that. We created a sustainable way to work so that even our staff have the same privilege and luxuries that we do. They all work from home. We worked from home long before COVID. From day one, effectively, we had workspace offices before it was popular, out of hotel spaces. We allowed our staff to have, work there 4-day week, however you want to work. We're very much, when you're a small business owner, you don't work, you don't eat. So that energy is kind of what we give our staff. And by having less overheads, we were able to give much higher commissions than our competitors and things like that, So, sorry, just going back. So it's about being intentional with what you actually want to get out of, whatever you're going into. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the mindset. It is about just knowing not what the end goal is, but what the reward needs to be. For you to be satisfied, for you to be successful, for you to be happy. Not what it looks like externally, necessarily.
Was it, you just made a statement, do the rest of your team also get 4 days? So the whole...
They work flexibly as they need. Like some want to work full time for their full salary. I mean, it's on a pro rata, but, some work 3 days. We've got working mums, so and they can go up. If it's busy and they've got more childcare, they can say, actually, I can work 4 days now, or actually, this is not working for me. So, and that's the flexibility we have, because we're intentional about that being the main point of our business. If people are happy, then they'll work hard and they'll make money. It's like
it's that simple.
It is that simple. It really is. Like, I wish it was like this really like recipe to success. But any leader knows that, and it doesn't matter what your business is, your people are your biggest asset. And lack of investment in people, and that's not just financial investment. Actually caring about what it is that's going to motivate, inspire them. Is the differentiator between success and not,
So how do you find that, Dean? Because you've worked in different companies, especially when you're coming in. One of the biggest things you have to deal with when you're coming into a new organization is the people. How do you dealing with people who can sometimes see you as this person who's coming in, we don't necessarily like you or even know much about you? There's always some hostility that can be there as well.
Well, yeah, one of the things that makes that hardest is I normally take over from a founder. Right? It's most common that I'm the professional CEO that replaces somebody who started the business. So what I find more often than not is the culture of that business is built in the founder's identity. And people, for some of the reasons Davina's describing, have an incredible affinity to that individual, right? That person has paid them, looked after them, taken care of them, been very kind of thoughtful towards them. So when I show up, it's not just like a professional change. It's like a change of parent, almost, or worse sometimes. So it's probably one of, if not the hardest part of the job, managing that transition. You can't trash what the person behind you did, because you'll lose staff who were part of those ideas and those strategies, right? So you can't write that off on day one. You can't be too aggressive in setting the new direction, because that is just a positive way to say the past was bad, right? So you have to be quite thoughtful about how you manage that transition, and it's easily the thing in the first 100 days I spend the most time thinking about and trying to like finesse and get it right. And I've used different things in different scenarios. I mean, I took over at one company where I would say for the first 3 or 4 weeks, staff wouldn't meet with me. So you'd set meetings to talk about something, and they wouldn't turn up, or they turn up, 2 hours after the meeting. Oh, I forgot, and had to deal with all of that nonsense because they were rejecting the change. So it's easily a thing I'm super, super thoughtful and deliberate about.
So that kind of scenario, how'd you handle it?
What I've learned over time, and at the beginning I think it was maybe a little bit natural, but over time I've seen it enough times that I know that I'm more deliberate about it. But you kind of have to take the measure of the tone of the organisation. So in that particular situation, people were aggressively hostile. Like they really didn't want it to happen. In a more recent example, there was more an undertone of that, right? So people weren't as direct about it, and they would turn up to the meetings and they'd agree, and then they go away and kind of not do what we agreed we were going to do, right? In that example, they weren't turning up for the meetings, and if you gave them instructions, they told you we're not going to do them, right? They were very very aggressive about it. So you have to take the tone, because in this situation, we fix that with like public expressions of the repercussions for that behavior, like very public expressions. So people who did that lost their jobs. People who didn't carry out the agreed instructions, there were consequences. So we had to educate that organization that this isn't the way we behave, and there were consequences for this type of hostile, aggressive behavior. And that had to be visible. And once people saw that, they stayed and participated, or they left because they didn't want to be part of that. In the more recent example, it's more subtle, so it takes longer to see, but when you do see it, you have to have direct conversations with people and say, like, we had that meeting and we agreed these things, and then you didn't do it. Then we spoke again and you didn't do it. Then we spoke again. Like, what is the problem here? Because you're clearly a smart guy, right? So, well, not you in particular, but you're clearly a smart person, and I don't know if you want me to believe that we can agree you're going to do something 3 times in a row and you just not do it. Is that you end up having those kind of conversations where 2 days later it probably dawns on the person that, yeah, I'm probably going to have to change the way I behave. So it's different, but it presents itself differently, but it's kind of a similar thought process, which I understand. I understand where it comes from.
I mean, from what I know, what we've talked about with your companies you've taken over, you are very much people first. You always look at the actual infrastructure and the people. You make a point, like you say, of meeting everybody and stuff like that.
Oh yeah,
and that doesn't often happen at your level.
No,
with other CEOs, where
it doesn't. I work with CEOs and it doesn't at all.
Right, So, and I know that's something that Dean has done. He seeks out not just the senior management, but also the people supporting them. And I think that's exactly why, another element as to why you've been so successful, because when you engage people at every level.
We agree on that. Like the number one asset in a business is its people. Mm-hmm. And I've adopted some of the flexible working approaches that Davina uses, because I absolutely believe that if employees are happy and fulfilled, you get more from them than if you manage them tightly to their 40-hour week, right? So we share that philosophy of flexibility, freedom. When people say they need a day off or they need to go do something at home, I want my organizations to be very accommodating of that, on the premise that, they'll pick that piece of work up on a Saturday morning or, Sunday afternoon. So I get much more discretionary effort from my teams because of that. I think because of that approach, and almost over rewarding and compensating people when things go well for the business. I make sure that a lot of employees have as much participation in that as possible.
Yeah, CEOs like you don't make me money as a recruiter. Your high retention is not good for me. But it's true. I mean, this is it. There are some companies it's impossible to headhunt people from because they're looked after. And that's the job can be the same somewhere else, but the people they work for are what you can't change. So once people disengage emotionally with their company, with their CEO, with, the brand, they're ripe for the picking for me. But, that's the difference.
Did you come across a lot of female CEOs?
Not as many as I'd like. I come across a lot of female MDs. It's like we're the doers, not the thinkers. But no, it's interesting actually, especially given the nature of my industry sector in PR specifically. It's sort of like, 70 to 80% women, but the flip of that is the leadership positions are 70 to 80% men, like go figure. And it's the nature of when women reach that career trajectory, usually hits them at the same time where they're in the point where they're looking to start families, and that is the crossroads. I mean, this is the intersectionality of how women have slightly more challenges in the workplace. Just to be, that's been really derivative about it. There are huge challenges for women in the workplace, but especially at the senior levels, because if a man announces that his wife's pregnant, nobody questions his capabilities, availability, or sustainability for him to do that job. However, the minute that is announced, a female CEO, the boardroom immediately having secret meetings, I'm sure, about how things will be managed and how much time she'll take off, and all these things. So we have to. I mean, that's a societal issue. We have to look at these things as to how we support and sustain women at senior levels. There is a lot more now happening to do that, but it's still an issue. And I think that, I've had male CEOs say things like, off the record, "Oh, you don't know she's having any more kids, do you, Dav?" I'm just like, I can't answer that. I remember, it's funny, one of my clients, this was a few years ago, he was CEO hiring an MD, fantastic candidate, and they wanted to offer the job, and she said to me off the record, she's like, "I've got to pull out." And I said, "Why?" She said, "I've just found out I'm pregnant, and I don't think it's fair to start a company, obviously, knowing that. And so she said, "Look, just tell them it's not going to work out, it's bad timing." And I said, "No, look, this is who you are, this is where you are. How about I speak to the CEO, because I knew him really well. I said, he's good people. I'd rather have the conversation and let him know exactly what's happening." And I had a chat with him, and we talked about it. And I said, "Look, the long-term benefit of this woman in your business is going to far outweigh the fact that she's going to take 6 months off during." So we negotiated it. She took the job, and she has taken that business to a different level during that time. She started at 5 months pregnant. She worked right through to 9 months. She had her baby. She took 6 months off. She came back and almost doubled that business within the next 2 years. And that's for me, that was a personal success story. I made that happen. But to me, also, that CEO being progressive enough to understand the value of the talent of that person outweighed their personal circumstance in the sense that her pregnancy was not a disadvantage,
And it's such a false economy sometimes of leaders to punish like women in this context in that way, right? Because I would be willing to bet that the commitment and energy that she had, because she was given the job, given the opportunity in those circumstances where otherwise she may not have been given the job, was part of the discretionary effort, was part of when she came back from maternity leave, she was
On fire.
giving weekends
Yeah.
and giving evenings. And I had the same situation where I got to offer letter with a young lady for a job, and she accepted, and then she called a week later to say that she wasn't going to take it because she was pregnant. And then and she went away on maternity leave, and she spoke to me so often throughout her maternity leave to say, I cannot believe you gave me this job despite the fact I wasn't going to be around. You know, when I get back, I'm really going to make a difference. And just the energy, and I'm not saying women have to behave that way if they're given the job, but I'm just saying in this climate, it's a bit amazing that they feel that way when given an opportunity, that they have to come back to prove themselves.
I think it goes back to that personal thing of feeling like you're being seen. So when you treat individuals as human beings, and for example, in that station, right, okay, you're pregnant, that's part of life, go away, do what you need to do and come back.
Right.
You have this natural, I want to give back for
Yep.
the opportunity that you have.
Yep.
And that's why it's listening to you talk, and even that experience that you share was because you knew the CEO. And yours is because you've been influenced around family and things like that. But I'm just thinking, how can we, if you're in situations where you don't know the CEO, how do we start to potentially change the way that senior leaders think about women with pregnancies who will be great at their jobs, but they don't get opportunities or get turned away from potential opportunities because of that?
You know, I have a philosophy on this, which is we just have to make women in business at the appropriate levels the norm. Like, let's just continue to push so that it continues to become more and more the norm. Because if I have female peers, you know, at board level and exec level, part of what comes with that is at some point in time they may go to start a family. It's just normal. Like, it's going to happen, right? So I don't know that the conditioning is around maternity specifically. I think the conditioning is, you know, you've got an executive team of 12. How many different points of view do you have on that team? You need different points of view on that team. Good points of views come from different types of people, including women, including ethnic minorities, including people who have worked in companies like ours in other parts of the world, including people who have worked in companies that supply to us or supply to our like, just get the perspectives around the table and let gathering those perspectives become a normal, and then the other byproducts of having those different perspectives around the table will take care of themselves, like Ramadan, right? If you've got you know, people around the table from that part of society, there's going to be a month where you're going to have to deal with your meetings a little bit differently because of their you know, life commitments. All of these things are what come with having diversity and different perspectives around the table. So, and that's how I think about it. I'm not deliberate in targeting these micro items. I'm deliberate in gathering a variety of perspectives from all walks of life.
Yeah, that's...
Bigger picture.
I'm going to step off that. I'm like, that's it. That's the key, isn't it? That's the key.
Exactly that. I mean, the conversation I'm having a lot with clients about ED&I is, you know, ED&I is not one thing. It's not a race thing. It's actually looking at every facet. It's about looking at socio-economic disadvantage. It's about looking at fat culture disadvantage. It's about looking at race and sex and all of the other things beyond these little groups. Like, if your board doesn't represent your wider business, then there's something wrong. I mean, that's as simple as if you've got 1,000 people in your business and they are completely diverse, and yet your board looks like one type of person with a token woman or brown person, or, you know, then you're doing something wrong. It means that the decisions you're making aren't fueled by the true diversity that your business is trying to actually, you know, exemplify or represent, you know, and therefore, you know, your customer base, your audience base equally is diverse. And, you know, you look at these progressive brands that are constantly, you know, evolving and looking at what their management teams and their senior management teams are looking like, and you see how they're thriving.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to start naming them, but you know what I mean. Like, but we, we do know them. We see who their spokespeople are, who they're representing, what their board looks like, and you see it.
Yeah, whenever I get into that, like that diversity conversation, it's one that like finds me more often than I'd like it to find me, right? And we get into that diversity conversation about why diversity is important. And I stumbled across my favorite way to describe it, which is like innovation. Every company to some degree needs to innovate, right? Some more than others, but innovation is at like the core of most successful enterprises. Innovation is the ability to creatively think, like consistently creatively think. And whoever can convince me that consistent creativity will consistently come from single-minded people. By single-minded, I mean like-minded, right? If all 10 of us think and see the world the same, tell me that group of 10 will out-innovate 10 people with 10 different frames of reference, right? Which one of these two groups do you think is going to innovate more successfully? This one who just sees the world in exactly the same way, or this one who is going to have an idea, filter it through 9 different filters. It won't make it through the other 9 filters because somewhere along the line, somebody will find a flaw in it and then they'll start again. And you'll get an idea that's gone through 9 or 10 different filters over here, and you'll get one that's pretty much only gone through 1 filter over here. Like, which one of these teams is the most powerful and most likely to innovate successfully? And if you think it's this one, then you need to mix up who's around the table. And I enjoy describing it.
Great analogy.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
Because I like that because it takes it away from
Yeah.
how many black people do we have, how many women do we have,
Yeah.
it takes it away from that and just says, just get 10 different ways of viewing the world around it.
Like cultural ad versus cultural fit difference, isn't it? That's
Right.
the key to it. And speaking of innovation, I think one of the interesting ways I've seen both of you do that is through the Forbes family group, which was, I was like, okay, we set up this trust for the family, and it kind of reminds me of what I've seen a lot of older, wealthier organizations or families, should I say, do from like 100 years ago. So I was kind of like interested, like, what was the rationale behind creating the Forbes family group, and what are you trying to do with the Forbes family group?
It's changed a bit since we originally came up with it. A funny thing that was happening to me is as I was becoming more and more successful, my phone was ringing more and more with rich people, sometimes institutions, calling in saying, there's a great investment opportunity over here. It's like a pretty much guaranteed 12% return. Do you want to put some money in it? And a lot of the time I was kind of like, yeah, okay, cool. If he's putting his money in too, no worries, I'll do it. And then you get a return back almost always. And I was kind of looking at it and saying, I'm actually not the person that needs this profile of investment, because I've got opportunity to invest. I've got opportunity to earn. The person who has saved 10 grand over the last 12 years and would like that's the person who needs it. So the original concept was to use Forbes Family Group to open up investment opportunities to a network of people, right? That was the original. And what I learned is that's very, very difficult to do and administrate, right? Beyond like your family, because your family will give you money and kind of trust you. But people who less and less, they want a bit more commitment, they want a bit more administration, they need a bit more of a contractual relationship. The structure of Forbes Family Group has to be such that they feel comfortable putting money in. So that became hard to do, and then you actually should be regulated if you're going to do that kind of thing. So we kind of turned it now to focus more at investing in 2 ways. So mainly what I call community-based investments, where we find causes that are really close to our heart, right? So 10MB is one of those causes. That's a kind of football organisation, a community-based football organisation through which a lot of great footballers have come. Ian Wright, Sean Wright Phillips, Casey Palmer, a lot of great footballers, Joe Gomez, have come through 10MB because they do amazing work in Lewisham, where we're both from, getting these Lewisham, Peckham, like Lewisham's where people leave Peckham to come. but they do amazing community work, and we wanted to be part of that, so that program can extend its reach and do a few other things in the community. So we really love that, right? So that's what we call community investing, and then we back actual businesses and actual founders with what people would call underrepresented entrepreneurs. I don't like that term because now we're representing them, so they're no longer underrepresented. But, where we find businesses that are good businesses being driven by amazing people who perhaps just don't have the experience or the infrastructure to get to that next level. So, one investment that Davina led is in a kind of local food business, Joe Knows Food. Amazing entrepreneur, great cook. This lady started this business at home during the pandemic, cooking a fixed menu weekly and delivering food to people's homes. And it just built up momentum, and it's got like a fan base, and she's oversubscribed every week. But a bit of work on accounting and getting the website set up and getting some online ordering going and thinking about menu and pricing. I mean, these are things that, are second nature to us, but perhaps not to her. So we get to invest and back a real business that is going to make money and bring our joint experience to really, really good, and immediate use. So that's kind of where it's now focused, which is a different angle to how it started.
What would you like to see it turn into?
Well, it's interesting because, as Dean said, where it's come from, it's pivoting, it's constantly evolving, and there's also the other element, which is investing in people, and that's part of our mentorship. We have a program called Project 10, which we're working on the infrastructure for, which is about getting young people who don't necessarily have a clear career path into industries and roles that they wouldn't have access to. Like when I first started, if I'd known when I was 16 that there was a job out there that I could literally talk and get coverage in the newspapers for big brands and make a fortune doing it, I would have been in PR. Like I would literally run a massive PR because I talk for a living and talk for free. But I mean, I didn't know I worked in media planning buying agency. I didn't know when I was 16 from Peckham that there was a job where you sold advertising space for brands to for in papers and TV and things like that. There are such a plethora of industries that young people don't even know exist, especially from socially disadvantaged. I hate the term as well, Dean. But inner city areas, you may have a kid who's a brilliant artist and he's really smart, and he doesn't know that he could be a graphic designer or an illustrator or a product designer because they just don't. It's not something that schools feed into.
Yeah.
And that's what Project 10 is about. It's about, if kids are going to uni, they've already got a support structure in place and potentially financial support in place. I mean, going to uni is a real privilege, you know what I mean? So there's great grad schemes, but if you're at uni doing a PR degree, you're going to be okay. You're going to get a job in PR. It's going to come for you. When you are 16 or 18 and maybe you've done your GCSEs and your A-levels even, and you don't have that next step to go, and you don't have a support structure to go to, to rely on. You don't have a network. You don't have an uncle who does the accountancy for WPP who can get you in there, which is how a lot of people get in our industry. We want to provide a mentorship for them where we have a wonderful network of people who work in so many different industries. So we want to provide mentors for these young people, and then we want to provide internships with companies that would normally only give opportunities to grads and things like that. So leveraging Dean's network, my network, and actually my client base. I'm sort of strong on all to committing to actually giving these young people 6 months work experience that will change their entire career trajectory, that will put something on their CV that, is tapping into what they're good at. Like I say, maybe it is that they're just good talkers, then let's put you in a career. Maybe it's sales. I mean, Dean's career started from sales, and now he's on the power list, and one of the best CEOs in the UK in his sector. So, giving young people a support structure through mentors and through networking opportunity, that was basically how Dean persuaded me to add co-CEO of Forbes Family Group onto my very, very packed plate already. And
we got to provide. That's what it is. It's
platform.
It's the platform and the network effect, right? And if we're investing at 10MB, we're trying to help young people see a different side of life, right? We're trying to help them. We did a school holiday club.
Amazing.
Where we wanted them to go out and see different things and do different activities during the summer holidays. We're doing Project 10, where we're placing people for 6 months work experience paid as well. We insist that you're gonna get talent, so you're gonna pay. You're gonna pay these kids,
but
right?
Giving them support as well.
And then if we're investing, if people want to start businesses or they have businesses, so it's just putting the combined network and experience to good use to give people like us from backgrounds like us more and more opportunities, and it's a lot of fun doing it.
It is fun. And it's great to be able to utilise our network. I think, like Dean said, we're not actually underrepresented. We're just all doing our thing. Everybody's out there hustling. But I mean, I know psychology, I know lawyers, doctors, creative agency leaders. So many amazing people who have come from the same areas, gone to the same schools that we all did, and we didn't necessarily have that network, but we still did it. But now we create a platform for the next generation to not have to do it on their own.
It speaks also to when you're utilising influence in the best possible way. It's kind of what both of you kind of described, isn't it? Where you have the influence now, it's like, okay, then let's go behind the scenes and create that infrastructure and that foundation for people to elevate a lot quicker than we did.
Yeah.
But they can learn from the experiences that we've had, combined with even like the change in technology and lifestyle that they have now, so they can accelerate even more and then keep on giving back in that cycle, which is absolutely amazing. Like I said, a lot of times when I think back, I wish there's so many different things that we have now that were created then. And how much difference it would have made, because you can see the world in a completely different way than you do now, or you did then anyway.
That's like, if you've got the influence, that's the way I think about it. You've got the influence, you've got the reach, you've got the network. Like, how could I not do that, right? How could we not, what would be the point of being on the power list and being able to call 20 people and say, I've got 20 young people who, need an internship. I can call 20 people now and say, I need you to take this kid for 6 months because he's a great kid. He just needs 6 months exposure. I can make that call. So how could I not? Do you know what I mean? Like, how could we not like do that? Because we're in a position to. So how could we not?
Love that. One of the things that I like talking to leaders about, especially both of you, it's around how do you look after yourselves? Because as your mother, husband, CEO, entrepreneur, leader, doing all so many different things, the key to all of that is you. So how do you both look after yourselves from whether it's a day-to-day daily habits you're doing, or I'm curious to learn.
How do I look after myself? Badly.
I was wondering how honest you were going to go.
It's definitely a work in progress. A dean can try harder area. I get a lot of fulfillment out of working. Like, I really enjoy my work. I really enjoy looking back and seeing how things have progressed. So I'm a recovering workaholic. I run. I like to run. I like to ride my bike. Cardio is where I get a bit of reprieve, and family. Like, we spend a lot of time together at each other's house. Like, we've literally grown up together our whole life. So we're still very social around each other. But I'm not very good at looking after myself.
I was going to say, he's such a nerd. All he does is work. Such a nerd. But okay, so I practice yoga, and I'm a qualified yoga teacher. So that's meditation, mindfulness, yoga, movement is a massive part of how I maintain myself, how I maintain balance. Yoga's very much a spiritual practice for me. It's not an exercise. So that keeps me connected with myself. And that's a huge part of how I sustain my very sort of busy life. I drink huge amounts of water. From a very basic point of view, it's a game changer. And I sleep well because I meditate. So everything is intrinsically linked to that, for me personally, to that. But I also fill my life with people. Like, people are energy. And I've got so many amazing people in my life. And I relish, I mean, I'm incredibly busy socially as well as professionally.
Yeah.
Everybody's laughing, but no, it's incredible the amount of people that I managed to fit in to my life. But that's, to me, the legacy of life is the people we touch, the memories we make. So yeah, that's how I start.
I'm trying to find
day.
silence.
I live in gratitude.
Davina's gravitating towards people. I'm trying to find a
Dean
corner to hide.
Dean hides, and
I'm just to hide and put my phone on airplane mode.
Exactly. It's so funny as well because we are, like, in so many ways the opposite.
The opposite.
Yeah.
You started a yoga practice, didn't you?
I teach yoga on an evening of a week. I've created a space that is very different to a lot of the studio yoga environments. I actually do it out of the 10B site, which is a beautiful building that it's a beautiful hall. And yeah, I allow a group of women to come together and breathe and meditate and move. And it gives me a huge amount of pleasure to see that, to get them to be present in themselves and have that moment of that 75 minutes of gratitude and presence. It's really special. So yeah.
I love that. See, I've got so many questions I want to delve into. We're running out of time, so I'm just gonna say I'm gonna ask two last questions actually. One, relationship between both of you. For those who don't know, how are you related?
First cousins.
Yes, my cousin. We're
First cousins. Our dads are brothers.
Yeah.
I was a Forbes. I'm still am by blood, but not by name. Dean was very upset about this. He had a whole conversation with my husband. Like, we've been together like 25 years, my husband and I, and we've been married for 12. And Dean was like, "You're really giving up your surname?" I was like, "Yeah, I am." But to be fair, I've still kept it on a few credit cards and that. But yeah, no, we were born, I mean, our dads are brothers, but our mums ensured that we were as close as. I mean, sleepovers. I mean, we got disciplined together. I was trying to find a word.
Sternly disciplined.
I know what that means.
Yeah.
We've had two other cousins.
Yeah, there's a group of us basically. But yeah, we raved, and we're very close in age, and our friendship groups have always crossed over.
But we've always been very, very close.
Yeah, he's my favourite.
Good, it's on record.
I was going to say, I've got 9 cousins about to text me.
Keep that in.
What?
Keep that in. Do not edit that.
So done. I was actually going to say something else, but then I thought, oh no, keeping it professional.
The truth came out.
Yeah, no. I mean, we are exceptionally close, and Dean's wife is actually one of my best friends as well. We've been basically as two couples. My husband and Dean and his wife have been literally together since like '98.
Yep.
Like rolling.
Okay, I guess the last question is: how do you define leadership?
The ability to get others to participate in the cause with, high motivation, full willingness, and with complete choice. Right. So if you can get people to wake up early every day, or wake up whenever, jump out of bed, throw themselves into a cause because they like it, they believe in it, they want to do it, then you're probably a good leader.
I think it's about being intentional and actually doing the things that need to be done. I think that's how I define leadership. It's about having a very strong intention about what you want to achieve and doing what it takes to get there, and taking other people with you is actually the difference between, I suppose, doing it for yourself and actually doing it as a leader, taking other people on your journey.
So many quotables in this conversation. Now, I really wanted to say thank you for your time. Really enjoyed it. Like I said, there was so many areas I just wanted to go further into, but we didn't have time. But just what you shared, I know is going to make such a massive difference in the areas we've explored. So thank you, and thank you for what you're doing with FFB as well. That giving back and giving that foundation it makes all the difference, and sometimes that's what people just need, isn't it? So really appreciate it. So I love seeing things like that being created, especially in this country. So
thank you.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us. It's been great.
Glad you enjoyed it. Everyday Leadership.